right on time. 5 o'clock on the nose. Hey, Jay.
How are you?
We're good, Jay.
We're good. Question is, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Jay, welcome to the Sports Deli. We're joined by Jay Bilas. As you must know, Jay is a basketball analyst, former Duke player, has his law degree from Duke, outspoken about the NCAA, the payment of athletes in the NCAA. And as Jay, we thank you for being here. As I was kind of doing a lot of research and reading articles and listening to interviews, I had a really interesting thought. Is there anybody who doesn't like Jay Bilas? I mean, everybody I talked to was super excited that you were going to be on the show. I mean, you do seem like you have quite a following.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't like me, but that's fine. I don't concern myself with too much of that stuff, but I don't really think about it very much. But that's a matter of taste. I don't have a problem with that. People like me, great. People that don't, that's fine too.
Now we having listened to a lot of feedback, I noticed that you and I have a couple things in common. One I need to thank you for, because I was digging through some old letters. I've got a couple of files of from 1991-ish, when I was trying to get college jobs. And this one that I pulled up says, I'll just read you one of the paragraphs from it. Gordon Jay Bilas, who played for me and graduated in 1986, is in his second year of being our graduate assistant. I would have no opening for that position since he will resume the same duties for the 91-92 season. So Jay, I've had not as stellar a career with basketball, but I've had a passionate one, and I wouldn't know these two guys if I hadn't gotten 400 or 500 rejection letters like that. That one obviously from the real Coach K back in the 90s. And then I realized that you and I have both been interviewed by Dan Dickow. So I watched your interview with Dan, which was 30 or 40 minutes long, and I really enjoyed that. You must do this quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the fact that you were rejected in favor of me is about as huge an insult as Coach K could have given you. That shows how lowly that position was, that I was chosen over you. I don't know, maybe Carrot Top finished third in that one. But yeah, I mean, I do stuff like this fairly often, and it's not just a COVID thing. I mean, one of the things that I've tried to do over the years, like it seems like everybody on the planet has my cell phone number, and my thing for radio shows or podcasts or whatever has been, if you call and I've got the time, I'm happy to do it. If I can't do it, I'll tell you. But if I've got the time, I don't see why I wouldn't do it. It's always good to talk to friends and people who share a passion for basketball or anything. I mean, I just sort of enjoy interacting with people. So this is never a burden. It's always fun.
Now, were you on the bench in Cameron when Bobby Hurley broke the assists record against Maryland?
Well, that was probably his senior year. So my 3 years as an assistant at Duke were Bobby's freshman year, 1990, and then 91 and 92. So my 3 years as a grad assistant there, Duke played in the NCAA championship game every single year. And so when I left there, the program really went to the toilet after that. It's really sad. But Coach K has been begging me to come back ever since, but I've kind of given him the Heisman on that.
You probably already have your hands full. You juggle quite a few things. You're still active in your law practice. We interviewed Craig Esherick a few weeks ago, talked sort of about how he got his JD at Georgetown and what kind of happened after that kind of moved him back into coaching. You played overseas. You came back, you were on the bench, you got your law degree. What were your thoughts around that period about how you were going to wield your newfound degree in terms of a career direction?
It's funny. It's an interesting question. Like, I had planned on playing 8 or 10 years overseas in Italy, and Coach K had called me and had an opening on his staff, and I had applied to law school at Duke and a couple other places, but it was primarily to see if I could get in so I could defer it. And then if I got hurt or something happened, I got cut or something overseas, I could just, kind of seamlessly go into law school. And, Coach K had called and said, "Hey, I've got an opening on my staff for grad assistant. If you were to take this, would you accept, sort of your law school? Would you do law school and that at the same time? Would you be willing to do that?" And I'd never thought about it. And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." But at first I told him that I'd planned on playing overseas, for longer. And because I was making a lot of money, I was kind of enjoying it. Like, I was a role player in college on a great team, and in Italy I was a star player, so it's kind of fun. And he said, "Well, that's great, I understand." But he said, "I just don't know if this is going to come around for you again," which is kind of like, you better take this now, because I'm not going to offer this again. So I took it and went to law school at the same time. But I really didn't have sort of this dream of being a lawyer. It was just, I thought the education, it was actually my dad that sort of encouraged me to go to law school, and thought the education would be a really good thing. And being a lawyer, whether you practiced or not, wasn't important to him. It was just sort of the idea of the education. You could always handle yourself, and if things ever got tough, you could hang a shingle out and make a living. But I got married at the end of my third year as a grad assistant when I graduated law school. And my wife and I just kind of decided that coaching might not be the best thing for us. It might be the best thing for me, but it might not be the best thing for us and for our family. So I thought, well, I can practice law. I don't need to be a coach. I want to be, but I don't need to be. And what my wife wanted was important to me. So I started practicing law, and the broadcast thing came out of sort of from that. I had no intention of doing anything but being a really good lawyer when I started with my law firm. I'm with a big firm called Moore & Van Allen. And, oddly enough, I got a phone call from the president of the Capital Sports Network, who asked me, "Hey, would you be interested in doing radio color commentary?" And I thought, well, why not? It'd be great. I made no money. I mean, it was like a money loser. But I thought it'd be fun, and if I don't like it, or if it negatively impacts my law practice, I'll quit. And I did like it, and I wound up getting some sort of notoriety from it. And then ESPN started offering me games, and then after that, one thing led to another, and I sort of stepped aside from law. Even though I'm still with my firm, I don't practice. Like, I carried a big caseload back in the day, but I don't anymore. So now I'm a full-time broadcaster, kind of part-time lawyer.
Mike, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Hey, Jay. Thanks again for being here. I have a question. You mentioned your wife, and you've spoken publicly about her and your admiration for her and how strong of a person she is. And during the pandemic, I know for you and for a lot of us, it's been a time of reflection. And, people have been doing things that maybe they haven't been normally been doing. And, you talked about your experience a number of times since you started speaking during the pandemic about your reunion. And for those of the people listening that haven't heard that story and what your wife said on the way home, it was inspiring. And we had similar experiences where we first started our coaching career, where we didn't really, where we weren't in alignment with the head coach's philosophies and methods. But yet we all stayed in touch. There's about 30 of us over about a 4-year period. We all stay in touch. And I don't know if it was in spite of him or because of him, but if you wanted to share that with everyone, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's a story I told at a USA basketball clinic when I was trying to get the point across to coaches that, if they thought that their role was mostly about winning and losing or X's and O's, I think that was a mistake. And, so I used to start off like that kind of clinic talk by saying that I think most coaches, especially in high school, would tend to agree, or at least everybody says, that only 2 or 3% of high school players go on and play in college. And I was saying, well, if really those are the numbers, we're dealing with a very small subset. Well, isn't really the job to make sure that the experience for everyone is a really good one? And you know, the coaches, I remember everything my coaches said to me, you know, whether I played baseball, basketball, whatever, whether it was high school, you know, when I was in Little League or college, whatever. I remember everything my coaches said, because that was the most important thing in the world to me at that time. And so probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, you know, my wife and I go out to California, where I grew up, every summer to get out of the heat of North Carolina during July and August. And we're out there, and my high school teammates and I all got together, and we had kind of a high school reunion of our basketball team. And I was lucky. I played on a really good team where a number of guys went on and played Division I basketball. And, you know, we got together as a bunch of old men talking about how great they were when they were 17 or 18, and, you know, swapping stories and everything. It was really fun. But, you know, most of us brought our wives with us. And so I was really grateful to my wife for kind of enduring that, because it couldn't have been any fun for her. And so on the way back to where we were, in the house we were renting, I just wanted to say thanks, that I really appreciate you putting up with that. And she said, no, I had a good time. It was really fun. And so I kind of picked her brain. I said, what stood out to you? You know, and she said, well, I was really impressed with how close you guys still are and what good friends you are, and how, you know, kind of how we genuinely cared about one another. And then the second thing she said was, and you all need extensive therapy, because your high school coach scarred you. And I was like, what are you talking about? She says, do you realize how much you talked about, you know, how difficult he was, and the things that he did that, you know, he says, you guys are all in your 50s. And that was like the dominant theme. And look, he was, you don't want to talk. I never tell this story to bag on him, because I don't think what he did was intentional. I mean, the things he did was intentional, but he wasn't trying to intentionally be hurtful. But the things that were done there were not right, and they were scarring. And for me and a few other my teammates, we got to go on and play in college, and we all played for really good coaches and had great experiences. So that our high school experience wasn't our last organized basketball experience, and wasn't the dominant one. But for the majority of our teammates, that was it. And it's really kind of a shame. And so I always ask coaches at these, when I talk about this at a clinic, if I happen to bring it up, is, you know, how do you want to be remembered by your players? And, you know, if they do have a reunion, do you want to be invited to it? Because none of us thought, and it wasn't a sinister thing, and we're trying to be hurtful, but not one of us thought about calling our old coach, not one. And he's since passed away, and so we can't do it now, but none of us did. And so I think it was, you know, it's just sort of a learning experience for all of us. I've always tried to ask coaches that, look, everybody wants to win, and everybody wants to drive people to be their best, and all that's important. I'm not suggesting it's not, and I'm not suggesting you can't challenge your players, but there's a line there. And I don't think, you know, we didn't get together and talk about our out of bounds plays, or what we ran after timeouts, or, you know, geez, I can't believe we didn't do this at the end of the game against Lakewood in the state championship. It was basically about how we were treated. And that's important. And, you know, you kind of that should be a baseline that everybody should be able to agree upon. And so that's sort of what that was all about. And the only thing, honestly, I appreciate you asking about that, because I get to say this too. The only thing I have a little bit of reticence in talking about it is, you know, this was 40 years ago now, or whatever it is. And, you know, like, our coach made a lot of mistakes, and it was not a good thing. And I didn't condone it at the time. I didn't care for him. And as soon as I left there, I never cared if I saw him again, ever. And every one of my teammates felt the same. Not one of us kept in touch with him. And we had damn good reason for not.
And that's sad.
But it is sad. And that's why I tell the story. But I don't want to make it seem like he was this monster that he wasn't. He was a good person that was in over his head and did not handle things the right way. but he was still had a family that loved him. And I think he was a good man absent that, but he didn't know what he was doing. And as a result, he acted in a way that I think if he could have been better educated about it, would have done a better job. Because I don't think he was a bad person.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because I hadn't heard that part of the story before that you shared with us at the end. Now, having talked about that, conversely, being around Coach K for so long, and John alerted me to this, that 7 guys on that 86 team were either head coaches, assistant coaches, or in front office positions. And that's the other side of it, where you have someone like Coach K, who his influence is, I can't even comment on, the impact that he's had across, domestic lines, internationally, at home, with the most famous players that have ever played the game, with you. So talk a little bit about his impact in your life, not just being an assistant coach, but even now.
Well, it's been profound. And one of the great things for me, I'm 56 years old now. And so from the time I was 18, I've known Coach K. And, he's been my coach for all this time. And there have been classes of players. I was in the class of 1986. There have been classes that he's recruited. We're a number 1 ranked recruiting class, and he's had others of those that were probably way better than us. But I wouldn't trade our experience for any experience of a player, any 4 years any player's ever had for him. One, we've had a relationship with him for longer than anybody, which is kind of amazing, really, that our coach is still coaching where we played at our age. It's really kind of ridiculous when you think about it. And then we've also, like, when I played for him, he was in his mid-30s. Like, he was really young. My first NCAA tournament game as a player was his first as a coach. And kind of amazing when you think about it that way. But, I've been able to watch him mature into, I think the greatest coach ever. But, when we played for him, the first practice we had, we weren't saying, okay, well, let's do our best because we're playing for the greatest coach ever. We trusted him, I think, because of who he was and what he represented to us. But it was a gut feeling that he was the best one for us. There was really no record behind it. So I think we're all kind of proud of that. He's probably not as proud that he recruited us as we are that we said yes to him. But
Jay, can you call him Mike now, or do you still call him Coach?
That's a great question. I've never called him Mike, and I've always called him Coach K from the first day. And I don't think I'd ever be able to, even though like now. He likes to say all the time that we're, now we've gone from coach player to friends. And I think that's true. I don't want to diminish that, but there's always something about, sort of your coach that's different. Right. And especially in that kind of setting or environment, I'll never be able to call him Mike ever. And obviously he's in a position that is loftier than anything that any of us could ever aspire to. But at the same time, he is a regular guy, and he's always been a regular guy with us. He's never sort of been like, hey, I'm Coach K and getting off a private plane and having a red carpet. He's never been like that with us. But whether he became Coach K, the winningest coach of all time, or he was Coach K, a guy who banged around in the game for 30 years or whatever and had good success, he'd always be my coach. Does that make sense? I mean,
it does.
There's just a, I don't know whether you call it a line, or there's just a level of respect. Like, it's like calling I wouldn't call my dad by his first name. I wouldn't call Coach K Mike. I just couldn't do it.
I was really moved, Jay, and still am. There's all those moments that you kind of keep track of. You and I are very close in age. I think maybe we're 2 months apart. And there are moments for me in movies that I know will create emotional release for me. I'll weep or cry or at least get close. His induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame is one of those moments when he came. I don't know if you were there in the building during.
I was there, yeah. When
he came on stage, and I'm an IU grad, so I have a thing about Coach Knight, but I feel like it's tempered. I mean, I don't think he's the but I was incredibly moved when he got on stage and said, thank you, Coach, and you're the only guy I've ever called Coach, and to be able to do that and a level of humility you don't really see very often in the industry.
Yeah, and humility is a good term for Coach K, because I think he's got a great sense for other people, and he's got a great feel for other people. So look, he knows he's really good at what he does, and so he's obviously very confident in his ability. But you get him away from basketball, especially and you've seen him in these settings during the summer when he's not. I think he calls it battle mode during the season. I'm in battle mode, but where he's like singular in focus. But you get him during the summer, and you wouldn't be able to tell that he was the best at what he did, or that he was even good, because he's just a regular Joe. And I mean that in the best possible way. Like he's very thoughtful, still writes thank you notes. Like every year we get, he sends a handwritten birthday card to all of us. Wow. It's kind of extraordinary, really. Like he's old school in that regard. And he's got a million things on his plate and still manages to do all that stuff. So I've always been sort of really impressed by that.
Jay, I want to take you back, unless the guys interrupt me. I want to take you back to 1986 for a minute, to mid-June. You talked a little bit about the playing experience. Part of that playing experience, obviously, is the intersection with Len Bias. You talked to Reese Davis. I think during the show in June, there was a thing that you posted on your Twitter account recently that I had a chance to look at, and your comments. I was surprised to see you wearing a bright red Maryland shirt for that interview, but we're all really closely tied to Maryland, and we all, I think, have the appreciation for Len Bias. But you said something interesting in one of your interviews. I think it was the one with Reese Davis. You said something, and if I mischaracterize it, Jay, please stop me and reframe it. You had disagreed that what came out of his death was great. You had made some comments about Congress sort of rushing off to pass some drug legislation that didn't really maybe sit well in communities of color. Am I characterizing that fairly?
Yes. Yeah. And it was basically, I think I don't know whether the right term is cliche or what, but when there's a death like Len Bias's, and there have been very few like that, but many drug overdose deaths, because you'll remember right after Len Bias died of that drug overdose, Don Rogers, the former UCLA defensive back, Seattle Seahawks cornerback, died of the same thing. It might have been just 2 or 3 days later. I think the cliche is, well, that saved a lot of lives. The idea that scared off people from drugs or something like that. And I hate to disabuse people of that notion, but with Len's death, that wasn't true. Thousands upon thousands of people suffered because of that. From Bias's death and also Don Rogers' death, Congress took up legislation for mandatory minimums for drug offenses that were disproportionately affecting African Americans, and countless African American men and women, but mostly African American men, went to prison for ridiculously long and unfair sentences due to that legislation, and it was wrong, and lives were ruined over that. So it wasn't just the tragedy of Bias's death. The tragedy went beyond that. And those federal sentencing guidelines and mandatory minimums made no sense at all. And they were wrong then, and they are wrong now. And that was sort of my point in that. And there are times when even though well-intentioned, our government and the NCAA, all these governing bodies can be profoundly wrong. And that was profoundly wrong. And Bias's death was used in that regard to ramrod through that legislation. And I believe, and I don't think I'm alone in this, I think there are countless people that agree with this, that it did incalculable damage to the African-American community.
John, did you want in?
Yeah, one thing, Jay, I grew up in the DC area, and I actually was at I went to Maryland basketball camp when Bias was there, and Jay Bias, was his brother was there, and I actually was at Len Bias's final senior game. And one thing I think it ties into what you're saying is people forget the University of Maryland is really is in DC metropolitan area. This was on the news every night, the investigation, Brian Tribble, the whole thing. And I think that played into the federal, because these politicians are seeing it. It's not happening in Dallas. It's not happening in Chicago. It's happening every night on the news. They were seeing it on the front page of the Washington Post. So I agree. I think it totally played into it. And quite frankly, the dismantling of the Maryland program, which took, 15 years, and Gary Williams coming in to bring back. And it's still, for those of us of a certain age, it's still a cloud, and that hovers over that program. And when the football player from McDonough High School went down, the immediate thing was, this is their Len Bias, because I have friends who work at Maryland's on the administrative side, and they're like, this is our Len Bias. We're now going to be dealing with this for the next 5 or 10 years because it's still a cloud over there. People, from that standpoint.
Yeah, John, that's a good point. I mean, just look at John Slaughter lost his job over at Lefty Drizel, the athletic director. I mean, it was an awful situation. But I know it seemed localized to DC, but it was really a national and an international event. Right. And I mean, people still talk. I think for our generation, you can mark time kind of like our parents' generation did with the Kennedy assassination. Mm-hmm. Everybody remembers where they were when they found out Len Bias had died.
Right.
And he was that sort of an athlete. And people were, being drafted number 2 by the Celtics, and, people were expecting Jordan-esque things out of him. Mm-hmm. And I think he would have delivered Jordan-esque things. That's how great he was. And it's still difficult. There's been a lot of time, but every year, every time I watch one of those sort of 30 for 30s on Bias, or the anniversary of his death comes up, I get emotional about it. It's still very fresh for me because of, how close we were. He and I were not close friends. We got to be friendly in the last probably 3 months of his life. When we played in a lot of these all-star games and the like, but my friends were really good friends with him. So, and playing against him all those times, we were the same year in school. There's just something about that will never go away. It'll never be dulled. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh yeah, totally.
Jay, you liken it to Kennedy. And
just as far as, it's obviously, the assassination of our president is different. But just sort of the way we mark time. Like my parents, when I was a little kid, so Kennedy was assassinated a month before I was born, in 1963. So I heard forever, my parents and their friends, all of them talked about how they heard about it, where they were. Everybody remembered it, and there really aren't that many things that you can remember. Like for my kids, 9/11, they remember, people remember where they were in 9/11, exactly what they were doing. And I'm not trying to equate the things. I'm just saying for my age. Right.
But here's what I wanted to sort of massage that into, and it might be round peg, square hole, but we're kind of talking about life events with really big impact. Mm-hmm. And so I don't disagree with the comparison at all. And what I wonder, how do we, I think it in Bias's case, it tells us something about sport that maybe we normally just talk about, but don't often have a really significant example of. Its impact, how great an impact sports can have.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how our my kids would look at this, but I was really moved by the outpouring of emotion when Chadwick Boseman died recently. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could say it's the same thing, but I did not know Chadwick Boseman was ill. Bias's death was like Superman dying. You know, it didn't seem real to me,
Right.
because that's how bigger than life Bias was to me, and I think to everybody else. Like, you know, I get a lot of questions, I'm sure you guys do too, from younger people that know of him but didn't see him play. They see kind of, you know, the old video of him, and they're going, was he really that good? And you're like, yeah. Like if you dropped him into an NBA game, if you dropped 1986 Len Bias into an NBA game now, you would have your jaw on the floor. He would fit into today's NBA incredibly well with his athleticism, and he was a great shooter. He wasn't a good shooter. He was a great shooter. So, you know, look, it's just sports in our culture has always been a big deal, but for some reason, Bias struck a chord in even casual fans that most players never could. And he was an extraordinary talent, and you know, one that obviously was gone way too soon.
So Jay, are we in the midst of another impactful piece here, society-wise, in terms of, you know, Colin Kaepernick, the outspokenness of LeBron James, what he's doing to empower voting? Are we in a similar situation, but we're in it, and maybe we won't see it until we're able to kind of look back on it? Or do we see it?
Well, I think I feel like I see it, but so to me, Colin Kaepernick is a hero, but he's a hero in the same way that John Carlos and Tommy Smith were heroes. And so this has been protested and pointed out for a long, long time. I think that the key issue now is not what are African American athletes or African Americans going to do. It's what is white America going to do? Like, is white America going to admit that there are racist policies, that racist governmental policies that have led to the systemic issues that African Americans have been facing forever and face today? I don't think that should be that difficult for white America to do. That we shouldn't have a problem admitting to redlining and predatory lending and discriminatory housing and, you know, the governmental issues that, I mean, racism has been codified in law. Mm-hmm. And there's a great book that I read recently called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And I'd recommend it highly to anyone that really sort of in an academic way sets out the systemic racism in our society and how our society really is, it's really de jure segregation by not only federal, but state and local laws and ordinances and zoning laws. And so I think that's really the biggest issue is we've got a reckoning now. And I hear it all the time, people saying, okay, well, after the protests, what are they going to do? As if it's their problem. And no, it's our problem. It's America's problem. And the issue isn't what are they going to do? It's what is white America going to do? And there's a lot we have to do. But the first thing we have to do is admit, you know, no one's asking, like, I haven't heard anyone asking white America to feel guilty. They're asking them to acknowledge there is a problem and work together to solve the problem. And that's not asking very much in my judgment.
Well, there wasn't even an outcry there wasn't an outcry initially for African Americans to have white people admit this is a white problem. That just sort of happened, you know, on its own, and as it should have.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that.
But it's never happened before. This type of outpouring from white people, and that's the part that everyone thinks is hopeful.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Maybe there's more awareness now, but there's still significant pushback, right, which I find remarkable. And I understand pushback that is out of ignorance. and I don't mean ignorance is a bad way, but just not fully grasping what's going on, because it maybe for some people it does require getting out of sort of their white suburban bubble and sort of learning more and reading more and listening and all that. But it's almost kind of odd to hear people say, well, we need to listen. They're like, well, what have we been doing this whole time? And when you hear people, and I'm not saying this is a political statement, I'm just saying this more as we see this all the time. And so asking what it means, when you hear someone say, make America great again, the first question you have is, well, when was America great in your judgment? And, so it sounds like we want to go back instead of moving forward. And I think we have to move forward with an acknowledgement that we have significant issues that we need to correct so that there's equality for all. And to me, equality for all should not scare anyone. Those are the principles upon which this nation was founded.
Like everybody voting shouldn't scare anyone.
No, it shouldn't scare anyone.
Right.
And, it's the idea of let the best ideas win. And why would we tolerate a society that is not equal for all, that there's not equal protection under the law, that we don't all get equal treatment from law enforcement or the criminal justice system, whatever it may be. And I guess this sounds very political, but I don't think it's political. I think it's foundational.
Yeah. Jay, do you think that this beam that we're talking about is a beam that we also shine a little bit on the NCAA? And if we do shine that same beam, how much of it? Is this a similar problem, not admitting that there's an issue?
Well, it's just different. I think it's an issue of fundamental fairness in a business context that all I've really ever asked for is for college players to have the same economic rights as literally everybody else, including every other student they're on campus with that are non-athletes, that also get scholarships and that also get stipends, that are also allowed to earn or accept whatever they can in the marketplace without compromising their status as a student or compromising their status in their chosen field, whether it's extracurricular or otherwise.
Right.
So that's really been it. It's interesting in this time now. I've seen a lot. The NCAA made an announcement the other day that they're furloughing basically their entire organization outside of upper management, and then they're also taking pay cuts and all that stuff. So there's like a 6 to 8 week furlough for employees there. And, so I've seen other people in my job, my colleagues say, well, people bag on NCAA policy, but these are great people and they're hurting. And I agree with that. Nobody wants to see anyone furloughed, but it seems like, we're in our sports bubble too. The airline industry is furloughing a lot of people and some of them aren't coming back. In fact, a lot of them aren't coming back. Restaurant industry is on its knees. You've got all kinds of different sectors of our economy that are on their knees. And so this is not just happening to sports. It's happening everywhere and nobody wants to see it happen. But those are separate issues from how the business is run and whether players have the same rights as everyone else. I don't care whether college sports makes, $10 million or $14 billion, which it makes $14 billion.
Wow.
Athletes deserve the same economic rights as everybody else. That to me, that's not controversial. That's another foundational principle.
Jay, go ahead, you guys. Go ahead.
Jay, you've touched on this, but what's the point of being a commissioner of the NCAA if you can't institute universal policies for safety of all the student athletes? So my example being, why is it not okay? And I know everything's the different conferences, but how can you explain it to a layperson why Maryland is not playing football this year, but down the road at UVA, they are playing football when you're basically in the same region? And then, it's basically the NCAA's job basically to take money and decide where teams are going to be seated in any type of tournament from tennis to basketball. Is that basically what we've gotten down to?
Basically, yeah. The NCAA runs championships, and they also deal with the rules that the membership makes and enforcing those rules, promulgating and enforcing those rules. So they're really an administrative body in a lot of ways. But the problem I have with it is sort of the lack of accountability in the system. And so on one hand, when the NCAA does something that they're proud of, then the NCAA president, whoever that may be, at a given time jumps up and says, look what I did, or look what we did. But then when something they are not able to accomplish something, they say, well, this is like the United Nations. We're a bunch of different countries running around, and it's like turning a battleship around, they've used as an excuse for the glacial pace. And in the pandemic, and look, this isn't it's not unprecedented. It happened 100 years ago, but it's unprecedented in our lifetimes. Let's put it that way. Nobody's saying these are easy things for the NCAA to do or accomplish. But with your specific example of, the Big Ten and also the Pac-12 deciding not to play football or fall sports, and the other three major conferences going forward, along with the American Conference and then some other schools doing it, it seems like there's a huge disconnect. So the problem I had with it, or the criticism I would have, is there's no coordination or cooperation among the conferences that could be coordinated by the NCAA. And they all have their different, medical panels that they brag about, but nobody tells us what the medical panels are saying. The Pac-12, after they made the decision, said, well, here's the basis of it, and here's some of the things that were said, but we're not hearing things that could help educate the public. And I think these, these conferences and universities they're federally funded. They have an obligation to, I believe, to educate the public, and especially in this sort of environment. And so the last thing I'll say on this is here's one of the ways I think the NCAA really fell down here is Mark Emmert and his board of governors have their own panel of medical experts. They have not shared one thing their experts have said, not one. And if they are being told that moving forward with football or fall sports is irresponsible or not advisable, it shouldn't be left up. Like, look, the conferences, the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, they may have the authority to go ahead anyway, but that doesn't mean that you don't stand up, and use that bully pulpit and say, our experts say this is irresponsible. Our board of governors is united in saying that it is irresponsible, and we do not think this should happen. That's what leadership looks like. And we haven't seen any leadership from the NCAA in this. I hate to say it because, they did a great job in dealing with, in March, dealing with the cancellation of the tournament. It could have been coordinated a little bit better here and there, but those are small things. Credit where credit's due. They did a good job there. They have not done a good job since then. And the only thing, I promise you this, the only thing they will do a good job on is they will figure out a way to have the NCAA tournament. They are working on that, and they will figure it out. They're really good at putting on events, and they'll figure, at first it was no class, no students on campus, no college sports. Okay, they backed off of that. And then it was, these are amateur athletes, we can't have bubbles. Now we're going to have bubbles. They're backing off, and they should. They shouldn't let optics be a problem here. We already know the players are pros. They shouldn't worry about putting them in a situation where, oh, no, Jay Bilas will say they're pros if we do this. They're pros anyway.
Right.
So let's do the right thing and not worry about the optics. But they'll figure out a way to have the tournament. I'm confident of that.
Jay, how are we doing on time? We want to make sure we're respectful.
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Okay.
We'll make sure we got to get to this and that in, Gordon. So make sure you.
Yeah, Jay, we have to break to you that Mike has a segment that we have tolerated that he's going to do at the end. So we'll just bear with us and keep your seatbelt on.
I'm good with it. Whatever you need.
A question I've read. There was an article online. I can't remember the source, but it was, I think, entitled something like 7 things, according to Jay Bilas, that players' compensation, I've got it in a note somewhere. And I read it pretty thoroughly, and it's the first cogent piece that I've really been able to find, because I always wondered, how would it happen? And I thought that was well done. So kudos, not that means much, but here's what I wanted to ask about that. If in the post-apocalyptic NCAA framework we're paying players, and I'm for it, I'm for the division of revenues in one way or the other, does Kenny Blakeney still get to sign McCord Maker at Howard?
Yeah, I think so. I don't see any reason why resources couldn't be marshaled to attract the same players you're getting now. I mean, really, if competitive balance is an issue, the way to deal with that, first and foremost, is just roster limits. That you have roster limits on your teams, and then you have talent spread around. I think one of the things that in order to have competitive balance that college basketball needs to do, football is already doing it, but is just have fewer teams that are Division I or whatever you want to call it, like a super division. And it's really simple math that if you have fewer teams, at the highest level, the overwhelming majority of players are going to want to play on that level. The best players are going to play on that level. So you'll be able to spread more talent over fewer units. So you'll have greater depth on all these teams. So if you do have players go pro, you do have players that transfer or whatever, you'll be able to weather that a lot better. It'll just make the entire enterprise better. But for some reason, in college basketball, we think that 353 Division I teams is a good thing. We've got this pipe dream that everybody can be Gonzaga or something, and it doesn't make any sense. So if you're really going to run it the right way, I don't think we're doing that. And just because we have a great tournament where the overwhelming majority of teams in Division I have no shot of getting in the tournament nor winning when they get there, why are we doing it that way? We shouldn't. But reasonable minds can differ as to what they want there. But really, like, one of the things about sort of the free market, and to your point about McCord Maker going to Howard, first of all, that's a crazy outlier. But just take advantage, or take it, for example, Wichita State. Like, Wichita State has zero chance of getting any of Kansas's recruits. They're not going to get any of them. So, but if they could pay, Wichita State as their top recruit would be able to pay more than Kansas could pay to their third recruit. So they'd really have a better chance to attract talent that way. And now look, there are some that say under no circumstances should a school be able to pay a player. I happen to disagree with that, but if people don't want to do that, you could do it via name, image, and likeness, but there's no way that's only going to be, they're going to be able to do name, image, and likeness, like your second semester, and it's not going to be in recruiting. It's going to be part of recruiting. And you guys see it as much as I do. Find a media guide now for a decent team in Division I. Media guides used to be for the media. They are not for the media anymore. Media guides are for recruits. And so everyone has a section in there about all the pros that they've had. And now it's not even enough that they say, look at all our pros. They say, here's how much money our pros are making. Mm-hmm. So they get, Duke or Kentucky or whatever, our pros are making X billion dollars since such and such a date. And they're going to do the same thing with name, image, and likeness. Alabama's going to be able to say, hey, look, we don't know what you're going to make, but I'll tell you what, last 5 years, our quarterback has made this. And that's going to be part of recruiting. And it should be. Why is money not a factor for anyone? It's a factor for everyone in the world except for a college athlete. And boy, but if we flash $5 to a college athlete, they're gonna turn away from the best situation to chase that $5. That's stupid. That makes no sense. Coach K has been offered a ton of money to leave Duke, and he hasn't done it. So you don't make decisions solely based on money. But if somebody wants to, they should be allowed to. Just like the NCAA wants to believe that every athlete makes their decision on what the best academic situation is, and they don't. They look at, like, the players at Clemson, no disrespect to Clemson, but they didn't put up those ridiculously lavish facilities because the players are going there based on academics anyway. Same thing for Alabama or Duke or whatever. Duke isn't building those nice facilities because their library is going to carry the day. They're not looking at the four. It's good for recruiting.
Yeah, they're not looking at the 4+1 programs, the undergrad graduate programs.
Yeah. I mean, that's not disrespectful. That's just the way it is.
Right.
So Jay, I think I
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think I speak on behalf of all of us. If we hope if you ever want to pursue the head position of the NCAA, we think that you would be an amazing person in that position.
Yeah, I don't think they want me in there.
Well,
That's a good thing.
All the more reason to add.
well, your whole life pretty much has been the unexpected, so you never know. But I wanted to ask you about working with Digger and Dick and some of the other amazing people that you've been able to go into other locker rooms and watch coaches over the last few decades. And I love listening to you. I know I speak on behalf of a lot of people. It's not just the way that you come across, but I just love to hear, what you've learned from all of these experiences outside of law and being a coach and being in the broadcasting business.
Yeah, that's been really the joy of the job. Look, like being a broadcaster, number one, it's like Disneyland. I mean, you get to go to games all the time. It's what you grew up loving. So even though there's no competitive aspect to it, there's not a win or loss after each game. You're around it, and I love it. And so one is the people I work with. So to be able to work with people, and you mentioned Digger Phelps and Dick Vitale, who were on the Mount Rushmore of ESPN basketball for me. They're not only friends, that they've been great mentors and great role models. I mean, there's not been a better broadcaster than Dick Vitale, and Digger Phelps was a mainstay and was a real mentor to me when I met Digger when I was in college. And so we were close from the time I was, 19 years old until now. And I love him like a family member. He is a family member to me. But also being able to work with Reese Davis and Seth Greenberg, and I've had the honor working with Jalen Rose and Jay Williams, LaFonso Ellis. So you just can't. They're not better people there out there. But the coaches you mentioned, like that's one of the great things is, I learned the game a certain way, and the game, the way I learned it was awesome, and I would not choose a different way of learning it. But this job has helped me understand that there are different ways of doing it and still doing it right. That I've been to, I don't know, maybe 100 North Carolina practices over the years, maybe more. And, if I could have played for Roy Williams, he would recruit me, but I would have loved to have done that. Just because, I mean, it's such a wonderful way to play. And it's different from the way Coach K does it. And his practices are different. And it's delicious because the difference is delicious. I would have loved to have played for Tom Izzo. And Jay Wright and Mark Few and Bill Self, all these different coaches that you get to see, and I got to watch John Chaney work at 5:30 in the morning, and John Thompson, and got to know, he just passed away, but got to know Coach Thompson, and then his son JT3, who was a remarkably good basketball coach. And, because he followed in his dad's footsteps, some people might think his record was diminished. But, I mean, he won Big East championships, went to the Final Four in 2007. I mean, that guy's a great coach. So being able to see all the different ways of doing it, or Gary Williams at Maryland. I got to be really good friends with Gary. And there's not a coach out there I respect more than Gary Williams. I used to love going to his practices and watching him in games. And then as soon as the game was over, like Gary's a crazy person, competitive. But as soon as the game was over, maybe as good a sportsman as you're going to find,
Wow.
would give credit where it's due. I mean, he wanted to win as much as anybody, but on the rare occasion when he lost, he was a great sport. He was like Nicholas that way. I love Gary, but that's a joy of me. Those coaches have taught me so much. I'll be forever grateful for having been in this very fortunate position to be able to, where they let you into their practices and meetings. And I mean, I've had coaches that, let me into their game plan meetings when they're playing Duke. And, they know I went to school there, and it doesn't, they know I don't care who wins. I'm too old for that crap. but it's just it's a joy to be able to watch people work in that environment, and I'm really grateful for that.
Well, Jay, you come across as a highly ethical man, and that might be part of the reason why people might give you access where they might not give someone else.
Well, I got them fooled, so that's good.
All right. Anything else, Gordon?
No, I feel like we could ask questions ad nauseum. We'll do our this or that, and tell you that we really appreciate what you've shared with us. And we wanted to try to bring some stuff out that maybe hadn't come out before, and go maybe to some places that, but with a guy who's been interviewed 100 times a week, as I'm sure you are, that's pretty tough. I hope you've enjoyed the time, and Mike is going to.
Oh, it's been great.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. This or that. I know Dan called it something else, but we'll give it a whirl. All right. Bell bottoms or lava lamp?
Bell bottoms. I wore bell bottoms in the 70s when I was a kid, and actually Levi corduroy bell bottoms.
Wow. Well, because you don't like skinny jeans, we found that out recently.
No, I do not.
Trend you do.
I need a little room.
All right. Let's get right to this one. Jordan or LeBron?
Oof.
That's a hard one. I'll say Jordan, but it's a hard decision because I saw LeBron in high school, and there's nobody. Let's put it this way: there's no other player I would hesitate on, and I'm hesitating. That's how great LeBron is that I would hesitate.
If he wins two more rings,
Mike, before you ask the next one, we should mention that Jay, you feel very strongly that the best college basketball player ever was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Not close. Yeah, it's not close.
Yeah.
And I cannot understand how anybody could look at that and come to a different conclusion. Like what ESPN did that.
I can tell you how. They didn't play.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even think you need to play. You just have to have a functioning gray matter. Like Kareem was the best ever.
Well, Jay, there are a lot of people that don't seem to have functioning gray matter these days. Go ahead, Mike, pick it up.
So if LeBron wins two more rings, does that put him over the top?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think it has to do all with championships because Jordan won 6 out of 8, and the 2 that he didn't win, he wasn't there for one of them, and he was only there for half a season of the other. But I just think the full body of work for Jordan is a hair over LeBron, but it's only a hair. Yeah. And, I think Jordan would have been just as great in today's game, and LeBron would have been just as dominant in Jordan's day. The only regret you have is that they didn't play against one another. I would have loved to have seen that.
Totally. Vacuum or dishes?
Dishes. Yeah, I don't want anything where I have to bend down anymore. I'm tired of.
You're the first one to say dishes.
I'd rather do dishes because, first of all, it meant I ate something good.
I think he's also the first guy 6'10" we've talked to, so that might have to do with it.
I wish I was 6'10".
The Zen Master or Bill Belichick?
I'd go Zen Master. I don't know that I've been in the same room as Bill Belichick, but I don't think I've ever met him. But for some reason, I think I would fare better with Phil Jackson's Zen than I would with sort of the cold shoulder of Bill Belichick.
All right, we'll leave it at that.
Although I love Saban and Belichick.
That's true.
If I could play for any coach in any sport outside of Coach K, I would choose Saban first. That guy is the real deal.
From a motivational standpoint, or just
all of it,
attention to detail? Yeah.
Wow. He'd hate me as a player because I wouldn't be able to satisfy his standards. But I've had an opportunity to be around him a little bit, and if Alabama football recruited me, it would be a 3-second decision before I said yes. I mean, he is the real deal.
So not Seth Greenberg.
Seth would require a little more thought, but Seth is great. But yeah, Seth. Well, I would not play for Seth in football.
I would hope not. All right, banana bikes or roller skates?
Oh, banana bikes. I had a Schwinn banana bike with the sort of the chopper handles in the early 70s, probably 1972. I got that. It was yellow, banana seat. It was awesome.
Happy Days or Cheers?
Cheers. Although I watched a lot of Happy Days. That was a good show for a while, and then it got corrupted.
Yeah, it did. Fly or be invisible?
That's a really crappy choice. I go invisible.
Pancakes,
I don't
waffles.
I don't see what good is being a fly. Like when people say be a fly on the wall, like why couldn't I just listen in? You have to be a fly. I'd rather be a cockroach. At least you could survive the day.
All right, Gordon, you don't want to follow up with that? Okay. Charles Barkley or Karl Malone?
Barkley, because he's a better commentator.
Right.
Oh, and Malone is heavily armed now.
That's right.
I see Carl every year at the Wooden Award, and what a good dude. We were the same year in school. He came out a year early out of Louisiana Tech, but still intimidating. And he's got on his farm, he's actually has weapons. So maybe I should choose him so he won't take a shot at me.
Probably a better golfer.
Than Charles?
Yes.
Charles used to be really good. I don't know what happened, but he played in that celebrity event in Tahoe and birdied his final hole, which is kind of cool. He's gotten a lot better.
We think whoever was working with Shaq on his free throw shooting might have also worked with Charles on his swing.
Yeah, it's some sort of post-traumatic stress issue. I don't know what happened, what happened to him. But he used to be a very good golfer, and then something happened, and I don't know what he's like those old baseball players like Steve Sachs or something when he couldn't throw to first base from second for a while.
Right. Your best imitation of Jeezy?
I can't imitate Jeezy.
Bust out a lyric.
Summer's mine, winter too, popping bottles in the club. That's what winners do.
There we go. All right. You as an alien cop in I Come in Peace or Will Smith in Men in Black?
Oh, me by far. I'm surprised. I mean, that was that movie came out in 1989, and I still think it's the most egregious mistake that the Motion Picture Academy ever made, not nominating me and giving me the Oscar, because it was a spectacular performance.
Not as good as in White Shadow.
It's comparable, but that would have gotten me the Emmy, the television Emmy. And so I would have been, all I would have needed was the Grammy and the Tony, which would have been pretty easy to get once I had the first two.
You guys should all count yourself lucky I didn't wear my official Carver basketball tank top for this podcast.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. But yeah, that was fun. I was only 16 when we did that. My whole team was on that, my high school team.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. We were the Oak Ridge team, where one of the Carver players transferred to this, I think it seemed like a private school type deal. And so that was all my high school friends.
Wow. All right, two more. Mickey Mantle or Derek Jeter?
I'd go Mickey Mantle because he won the Triple Crown twice. And if he hadn't injured himself, he would have broken every record in the book. He was, speed, glove, he has 5 tools. He was the real deal. I would say him. But that was another close call. And
all
plus,
right,
that's a hard decision because I'm a Dodger fan and can't stand the Yankees.
All right, well, this is the last question. You got to think real hard about this one before we let you have the floor for anything else that you want to share with us. Now that you've gotten to know Gordon and myself, we both teach yoga.
Oh, here we
If
go.
you're going to take a yoga class, who would it be with, Gordon or me?
I would probably sort of feign injury and get out of it completely.
Smart
I
man.
don't want to look at that. I'm not interested in that. Could I do it backwards where you guys are in the back of the class and just shout out what to do? Because I do take yoga with my wife. I go with her.
You tried it.
And I'm excellent at Happy Baby.
Oh, that's good. It's good that you're going.
Yeah, I have to go. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to touch my toes anymore.
Right. Well, youth is wasted on the young, Jay.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you haven't talked about in any of your infinite wisdom with your interviews with anyone? I know John Thompson just passed, and Lute Olson, you've talked about that a lot recently. Nolan Richardson was another guy. You mentioned John Chaney.
We also lost Morgan Wooten this year.
Morgan Wooten.
Yeah. What a nice man Morgan Wooten was, and a great coach. He coached a number of guys that I played with. And
yeah, Kenny. I think Kenny Blakeney was there, and
Kenny Blakeney, Danny Ferry.
Right.
But he was what a great coach, and couldn't have been a nicer person. My son used to go to his basketball camp up in
Mount St. Mary's.
I'm sorry,
Mason-Dixon.
No, it was at Frostburg State, I think.
Oh,
was
Because
it?
my wife is from. Yeah, my wife is from Cumberland, Maryland. So they would spend part of the summer up there with her mother. And so my boy would go to Morgan Wooten's camp. And I still have a picture of my son and Gary. When Gary was up there speaking, he took pictures with some of the campers. And my son was wearing like a Duke T-shirt and really pissed Gary off pretty good. So that was fun. That was nice.
That's crazy. I went to Frostburg for graduate school. That's so
Did you really?
Yeah. Well, any last words for the good of the cause? We really appreciate your time. I know it's been a long time, but wow, what an honor it's been.
No, it was great being with you guys. The honor was mine, and always. I thought there'd be, when you said deli, I thought there'd be some sort of sandwich that went along with this. It's kind of
We've actually FedExed that to you. We can't.
It's a whole COVID thing, Jay. It's a whole COVID thing. When we break out that we're out of the COVID, you can send it.
Probably send it to
we don't have the we don't have the Grubhub budget. I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to
fourth day ground.
Keep the box in the garage for 3 or 4 days until it decompresses or whatever it has.
Right.
Oh, wow. Well, we hope to hear you during the college basketball season. We know it's going to be different, but
I hope there is one.
Yeah.
Are you missing it, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, the rhythms are completely off. Like, I've been watching NBA games and loving it, but at the same time, you're going, it's September,
right?
And so. I think that's part of the reason I'm sure that ratings are off a little bit. And, but I mean, usually I would have been done with the NBA draft in late June, and I'm still working on it. And we're not going to have it until middle of October. And I'm sure it'll be in the sort of virtual sense where we'll be in different spots like the NFL draft was. So that'll be different. It's just sort of your rhythms are off. You guys are all doing the same thing. Like,
yeah.
My wife and I were laughing the other day. We had never gone, this has been 5 months now, but probably 3 months. We'd never gone 60 days in a row where we'd never been apart. And we've done that we've done way longer, and it's been great, but it's been an adjustment. And I haven't been on an airplane. We don't go out much. So our closets are really clean.
Well,
a lot of work around the house.
You find out one of two things in your relationship. You either find out that you really do like each other, you made a great choice, or not.
But the problem is with that is you can have both. Like, I found out I made a really good choice, and she found out she made a really bad.
That's not true, Jay. Funny, but not true.
So with the first pick,
I can get her up here to answer that.
So with the first pick in the NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select.
I think they'll probably take Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. From Georgia.
This is not like a draft like we've had before where there's some no-brainer picks. I mean, I guess every year you could say that, maybe LeBron was a no-brainer, but it's not the deepest draft of star quality NBA talent, but it's deep of really good players and guys that are going to play in the league for a long time. So it'll be I think in a way, this will be a more interesting draft because, we're all kind of throwing darts at the board here and pretty sure we're all going to be wrong in some capacity. So it'll be really fun.
Did you happen to see the article about your alma mater and the testing that they're doing on campus and the low number of cases? John, I think, dug something up about how they're handling COVID on campus at Duke.
Versus Chapel Hill.
I did. They've been very thoughtful about it. It's only freshmen and sophomores on campus. And,
right.
I mean, look, I wish everybody the best. These are hard decisions to make. But, look, the people I feel for the most in this, when you get past the tragic situation of health. So just sort of the effect of it, not necessarily those that have been afflicted with the disease itself. But, people that are in college now, people in their last year of high school, and then people that are just starting their jobs out.
Yeah.
For me, even though this obviously has affected everybody and it's all been negative. There's been very little positive. We're all looking for silver linings. But for me, the bulk of all my ladder climbing is done. And for like my kids are 25 and 23 and they're in their first jobs. And then they got to deal with this, and it, it affects things. And I've got a bunch of friends that they have kids that are finishing high school. Like my sister's got a boy, my nephew. It's his senior year of high school, and he might not get a high school basketball season in.
Yeah,
and is going to have to make a college decision. And he plays, and is he going to be evaluated the right way? Is he going to be able to evaluate the school the right way? It's unsettling. Mm-hmm. And so I feel for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are groping. I've got a couple kids who should get some looks, and they don't know, and they keep asking me. And the coaches that I'm talking to on their behalf, they don't know either. I talked to a couple of 2s and some 3s, and guys are saying, like, there I am sitting in Idaho with a mask on at an event, and I think to myself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, and the only thing I can come up with when I talk to people, and I have to remind myself of this too, is for my parents and my grandparents, my grandparents lived through the 1918 pandemic. They lived through the Depression. They lived through World War II. My parents did too on the World War II side, and they were born at the sort of the middle of the Depression. Like, we're dealing with this and it sucks, but we're not running up Omaha Beach either. Right. And, so other generations have dealt with stuff that is this difficult or more difficult, and we can handle it. So I try as best I can to keep perspective on it. And it sounds like you guys do too, obviously.
We try.
Well, thanks so much for everything and bringing happiness to our living rooms for so many years, and we hope to have you back.
This was kind of like running up Omaha Beach now that I think of it.
Yeah. Oh, you have no idea, Jay.
Maybe the Depression, maybe running up Omaha Beach during the Depression.
Yes. You know what? We're just happy to have a basketball analyst on who isn't yelling.
Well, 5 more minutes, I will.
There you go.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Jay, so much.
Appreciate it, man.
We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right.
Stay safe.
All right,
okay, take care now.
Mask up. Take care.
Wow.
Man, that was amazing. Good job, Gordon. John.
Good job.
You too, guys. John.
What?
Get in there. Mix it up.
I was.
You've got stuff to.
Okay, that was good. I wanted to let him talk. I got to make a call real quick, guys.
All right, sounds good, brother.
Does that mean you're coming back?
John has left the building. Boy, what would a podcast in the Sports Daily be in our
You should
form
put
of
that
the
in
bubble?
the middle. You should cut that. You should put it in the middle. Guys, I got to go make a call.
Yeah, okay, guys. Yeah, Jay Bilas was on. Yeah, see you later. Anyways.
I was doing that Baden demo for Tamir, and I had 2 of my players down there, and I said, I've got to go interview Jay Bilas, and he was like, yeah, okay. And then he was like, really?
Right.
Yes, really. Well, ask him about what he said about Giannis. He said, tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about. Giannis and LeBron and Miami, and I was like, I don't know.
Oh, boy, we covered a lot of ground there.
I'll say.
Man.
That's 2 episodes.
Really?
Don't you think? It's more than an hour, isn't it? You can cut that to 60?
I don't think I'm going to cut it at all.
Yes, you are.
There's not one thing to cut except the first 15 minutes I was on, and there was nothing but poltergeist. Wow, you think I should do a part 1 and a part 2?
I don't know. You see how, if you can get it to 60 minutes, then get it to 60.
What time is it? 6:50. Well,
just don't Wendell it.
Yeah, no. Wow, that was amazing.
What did we not get to?
We covered everything. We talked about the movement, college ball.
We didn't talk about his book.
Yeah, well, if you're going to leave anything out, he could cover that next time he comes on. I think of all the things going on in the world right now, that's something that could.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and I thought it warmed up too.
Yeah.
Did you think it warmed up?
Yeah, I think he enjoyed it, and I love his yoga answer and his answer about the alien.
Oh yeah, he's notorious for saying, "Oh me, absolutely me."
Right, exactly. Oh man. Well, there's not much else to talk about right now, I don't think.
Is John coming back, or are we just gonna?
I mean, he's there, but he's got to make a call, so maybe he's calling Coach Beaton or Leonard or something.
No, you didn't.
Get their
Yeah,
advice.
Coach Trevino, I was just on a podcast with Jay, and I wanted to make sure that you got a phone call inviting you to our next reunion.
No, Leonard is in the same boat as Jay's high school coach.
Yeah, but is he?
In terms of how they stayed in touch with each other and how it brought them closer together. And,
I feel like people hate Leonard more than Jay hates his coach.
well, I think he's tempered his true feelings. I don't think Leonard was a good person in any way, shape, or form that we saw. Do you? All he cared about was misappropriating, allegedly, funds and eating at Fridays and girls and winning at all costs.
Listen, no disrespect intended, but if my life depended on coming up with a couple of good qualities of Leonard Trevino, I think I'd be killed.
Right. Well, that's my point. Well, Jay said that there were a couple of good points to his coach.
Yeah,
he didn't coach well.
He said he was a nice guy. I'm not even sure I could say Leonard was a nice guy.
Nope.
John, do you feel differently?
No, but I think it was this. I think I will say this. I think if the athletic department, he basically ran that athletic department at a very young age professionally. I think if there was more of in this, Jeff Miller came in at the end, for my time there. I think if the athletic department had put more ground rules and all that coming in,
and what
things could have been different. Well, first thing, I wouldn't have let him live on campus.
Okay.
And I think that
more girls off campus.
But I would have put. I'm just saying.
Can I just paraphrase? Okay, I hear you. Tell me if I accurately paraphrase what you're saying? Given more institutional oversight, things would have been better.
Correct. I'm not saying they would have been perfect, but it would have been better. Or he should have been told, this or that. Do this, or you're going to be out the door.
No pun intended.
Yeah, maybe we should call him and just run through that segment.
Yeah. Lisa or
Amy.
Or Amy.
You might want to stop recording, Hoot.
Well, you never know what we're going to put in there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We've said
Wex, we need to come up with a catastrophe plan just in case Hoot falls under a bus or gets eaten while he's walking his dogs at the beach. I want to make sure that the show goes on and that we don't miss a beat. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, not really. No.
Right.
Is there anything in the world of sports that you guys want to touch on, or because I'm just going to probably let it be the interview?
No, the interview's fine.
Do you think that we should split it into two parts? Gordon suggested that, or no?
Yes, I think it's a good idea. Draw more viewers in.
We don't have any viewers. It's an audio cast.
Well, you know what I mean.
I could put this video up on YouTube too. I could cut it if you think that's a good idea. Also,
no, I don't want. No. As John would say, no.
Absolutely not.
No.
So,
all right, boys. Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Who's our next guest, John?
I don't know. I might have some people.
Patino?
No.
Beaton? I don't want Patino. Can
Can
I get Musselman on?
You can't do Musselman because all your stupid rules.
Well, just tell him that he needs the waiver.
Like
Maybe
he wants to do that.
You want me to tell Musselman something?
Yeah, just say
Exactly.
three coaches have already got the waiver, and if you're interested,
Unless Gordon has contact with a top 10 recruit, Musselman wants nothing to do with us.
I could lie about that.
So,
Sam
cool.
Vincent, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'm game.
Yeah, let's do Sam Vincent.
I'm trying to get Essence Carson on. I really want a WNBA player on. I think it's important to have one of them.
Does it
I
matter?
got to go, guys.
He's got to make another call.
Yep.
Does it matter who it is, Mike?
In terms of the WNBA?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like a current player.
Does it matter who it is?
I do not care.
Okay. So you're
Candace
not
Parker
attached
was
to
here.
Essence, as it were.
No, I just went through, as I told you, Bobby, and she has a relationship with her. So I
Does it
reached
have
out
to be a person of color?
It would be preferred.
Okay.
Are you enjoying the podcasting?
I am. I had a little anxiety about this one.
Well, you're a natural when it comes to transitions and putting thoughtful, what's the word? Not parameters, but framing it in a way where it's to the point and spot on. Usually, even though you're humbling yourself by the way you ask the question, but I think that lends itself to.
Well, I mean, everybody has a style. I mean, your style gets to be developed the more you do it. I've just done it a lot more, and so like I can hear when you guys ask something, and in my mind I'm thinking, oh, this is what that question is. Right? Like that. Here's what that question is. Like Jay, So then when I'm formulating my next question, I'm trying to sort of use that same template to make sure that I'm doing practicing what I'm mentally preaching. Anyway,
nice glasses.
Oh yeah.
For those of you that cannot see this,
these are actually color therapy glasses.
Some Men in Black orange color therapy.
These are legitimate color therapy. They come in, all the colors.
For migraines or what?
And right now, I feel like my lower chakras are being properly aligned.
Nice.
Which is why Jay should take class with me.
He deferred. Basically, he said, "John,
I'm just going to hang his big 6'8" ass upside down in a wall room."
Good luck with that inversion.
Yeah, inverting. I go to classes with my wife. Oh, I bet he doesn't stick out in a yoga class. 6'8"
with his bell bottoms.
Probably wearing swag from, wherever he was broadcasting last.
Oh God.
All right. Well, I thought it was pretty good, and it might need some cleaning up, but that's up to you, obviously. And I'm gonna go get some Jamba Juice and some Chinese.
Nice. Hey, that's my kind of language. Cleaning up where?
Well, I don't know, like maybe some of the transitions, or maybe the questions can be cleaned up, or maybe.
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah.
When we wandered off of a topic for a digression. I mean, some of that stuff is good. You want to have a little conversationality. We probably didn't have enough of that up front. Where he's trying to feel out the stage and. But
I mean, 70 minutes with Jay Bilas. Holy shit. That's incredible.
It was Jeff Klein that gave us the hookup.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Should I thank him or should I not mention it?
You mean in the podcast itself?
Oh, I didn't think of that. I meant just sending him a message.
No, I mean, you can. Yeah, I think that would be nice. Yeah, to recognize him. And I thanked him 6 ways to Sunday, and it wasn't like he got him. He just gave me the communication pathway, and I did the work. So, but sometimes
thanks,
that's
Jeff,
nice.
for spending $10,000 a year on fantasy camp, and we got him as a guest. Appreciate it, buddy.
He didn't pay
because he does the website.
Right. He was comped.
Got it.
I went with him 1 year. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. Did you enjoy it?
I did. I would have enjoyed playing.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys who really needed to be pushed around a little bit.
You and Flu.
Flu, too many pass fakes.
Flu sweating the minute he puts one of his shoes on.
I talked to him the other day. I feel like he's a Republican.
He is a Republican.
It's annoying.
Oh, these trolls. This guy I went to grad school with is the guy that keeps messaging me about how Obama's the problem and this is a joke and Kelly Loeffler is right. Oh God, I ignored him, so I didn't delete.
Obama?
Yeah, he said Obama is. I'm a political science major, and you don't know the truth. Fuck, and I like this guy too, and I don't anymore. I ignore him now, so his messages do not come through.
Wasn't Hitler also a political science major?
Oh God.
You'll cut that out, right?
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
All right, brother. I'm gonna have it up tonight.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I'm not waiting.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll probably be about midnight, but I want people to have it for the weekend.
All right. Send me some links and I'll get on board
So you think for sure 2 parts?
No. I think if you can get it to 60, do it.
Oh, okay. All right.
But look at it. If it's 70 minutes, you said 70.
Right. Well, he kept going after the this or that for about 7 more minutes. So that was some good material there.
Okay. Well, we could use those
So
as
so you don't think less than 70 is good? You think 235s is better?
I don't know.
I think we may not
60.
get people. I think we may not get people to listen to the second one. It's like, oh, I heard it.
Right. I think if you could see what you get it to, go through it, see what you get it to. If it seems like it's, if you've cut some stuff out and it's pushing closer to 60 than 70, go for it.
Yeah.
It's not more than 70, is it?
It's I don't know. I looked at the time when we hung up, so it'll be close. But I got to add in the at Jay Bilas and at the real deal Jay Bilas.
And then what we should do is we should have
and the ads are in there.
If we're going to tag the show, we should have one audio intro that we use for every podcast, and not slate the year and the episode in the audio. So it'd be just like, pick a slice of music and we'll fade it in, and you'll do the voiceover, or I will, or whatever, and we'll put that in front of everything we do.
So just say welcome to the Sports Deli. So don't say season.
You're listening to the Sports Deli with Hootie Hoot and Dr. J.
I'm not that like the first one. I'm not like that when I do it. It's pretty, like you. But you're saying don't put this episode 14 in there. Just say welcome to the Sports Deli season.
But what's going to happen 2 years from now? People go, hey, you can see what episode it is in the header.
I got you.
You don't need
welcome to the Sports Deli featuring ESPN's Jay Bilas.
Yeah, or today's guest. That could be the end part. Like, so you could, if you did a thing like the Sports Deli with Mike Hootner and John Wexler and Coach K, stop. And then the intro to all the piece could be, today, we're interviewing Jay Bilas. Jay, thanks for being on the show. And that could be part of the actual recording for each episode, so that right after we put the intro, you have a segue into the piece.
Yeah, cool.
Just a thought. All right, I'm out.
Yeah, man.
Take good care.
Great job. All right, later.
You too. See ya.